so excited to introduce our guests for today's episode. We have Jordan Chandler, who is the Virtual Building Director and Construction Technology Director for Harper General Contractors. And we also have Eric Dewyea, who is the BIM Coordinator and the Scanning Champion for Harper. Welcome, guys.
Thanks, Christy. Thanks for having us.
So I love the story that we have here because Harper General Contractors is celebrating its 75th anniversary this year, I believe. It's a family owned business. Even though Harper is on the leading edge of technology right now, it wasn't always that way. I think there had to be a tipping point. Let's talk about how you guys got started down this path. I believe Harper started out with laser scanning about 10 years ago, 2015, 2016, renting scanners. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. My predecessor actually started scanning at Harper. They had some needs come up, and he had seen it and done it in some other capacities, but kind of brought the idea of scanning to Harper. Made some connections locally, and came up with an avenue for renting a scanner for a day or a week. Trying to get the data sets and make them useful. I think we did I think the first job was a pretty ornate church, the exterior of a church that we did some renovation work on. We started off renting it here or there, maybe a couple times a year, if that, and then saw the advantages that the technology provide, and really got to understand the value that point clouds could bring at the time that you need it, but then also downstream. And so the Leica vendor for the total stations actually reached out and said, "Hey, I've got this scanner. Let me drop it by the office and give it a shot." And so that was about a week before I think we purchased the Gen 1 BLK. It worked well, but again, it wasn't a process that we had really fully adopted or really fully refined, and so we increased our scanning a little bit, but it was still hit and miss. When we had to, or when it was the only solution, we would use it. Um, but I don't know that we were looking for ways to use it, I think is a good way to put that.
Well, and again,
Um,
going back 10 years, I mean, that's, the BLK 360, the first generation came out in 2016. I think Harper probably made that purchase right around then, 2017, maybe. So you're going back a little ways. And it was very innovative at the time, but I can see where it might have been a struggle. And of course, the makeup of your team was quite a bit different. So tell me a little bit about how you got to that tipping point because here you are today. You're using multiple laser scanners. You're still using the BLK 360, but you also have the RTC 360 laser scanner. You have drones. You're using cloud project management, like all this technology. So tell me a little bit about the tipping point. I think there was one particular project where you saw, okay, you had to start using laser scanning because of the challenges of one project, and then it just kind of accelerated from there.
The UCB. So that was a 7-story post-tension, concrete structure in downtown Greenville. Mainly, it's a bank, parking garage, and an office space on the top 4 floors. And we really, Jordan can speak to this gang before Harper, and it was something, we applied over the years, but like he said, nothing we ever really fully adopted. And part of that scanning is we still knew the value of point clouds. And so when I first got out of there, I hired on with Harper, and Jordan kind of gave me a 2-hour workflow of, the scanning processes, and this is what it can do. I want you to scan every time there's about to be a pour to capture all the post-tension cables. So that way, if we ever needed to drill through that slab, we could pull up that data and know exactly where those cables are. Because as you know, in post-tension concrete, if you hit one of those cables after they've been stressed, it's a pretty big deal to the structure. And so really that was going out on site and scanning almost every week just because we had to. That's how many pours there were. And so in doing that, we got comfortable with the BLK, the processes, Cyclone field register. So it was really able to field register your data. So when you bring it in for post processing, it helps streamline all that. And so really getting comfortable with that, learning the workflows, and then seeing, hey, I got a good way I can scan out in here. How can I implement that to other jobs and start using it to solve issues?
Yeah, I think one of the big turning points that um, sticks out to me is the building bigger projects and getting involved in more complex scanning opportunities on those projects, but then also getting into Register 360 and understanding what it can do and how that could increase our capabilities was kind of the springboard that led us to do more scanning. Eric was a junior employee at the time, had an interest in scanning, and really took to it. It started to expand the opportunities, the uses, the places that we could plug it in and solve problems. Um, and then it got to a point with anything, I think, where if you prove value and you build trust in providing people with good data, um, they ask you to do more, right? That's the Truett Cathy method of, if you get better, your clients demand that you get bigger. And that's something that our leadership always reiterates. And I think we've kind of brought that mindset with construction technology to, let's get really good at the tools that we have, and then let's invest in bigger tools and better tools so that we can continue to perform and provide them with good data.
You mentioned the trust factor because having a laser scanning champion, bringing Eric in and having someone who is really focused on applying that technology really sounds like it was a key piece of the puzzle.
Absolutely. I mean, we are firm believers in people, process, and then technology. And so, getting the right people in place, people that are interested in the technology, that understand the construction process and what it takes to build a building, but then also are hungry to go, find new and different ways to do things that are, I guess, comfortable being uncomfortable, right? Getting themselves in sticky situations and then looking at the tools and saying, okay, I've got to solve this problem. Let me reverse engineer it and take the tools that I have and find the best solution. Unfortunately, Eric came to us and kind of fit the bill for that role, and really has, over the last 3, 4 years, developed a significant scanning skill set, registration skill set, and is now at the point where, he's mentoring and teaching and um, bringing a lot of our other teammates and just Harper employees up to speed on what it can do, and teaching people to consider laser scanning and point clouds to solve a problem when they run into the problem. I think that's a big part of the learning curve in that process is, just being on the job sites and hearing people talk about problems, but being able to say, "Hey, wait, I think this could help you solve that problem." And so we've been working really hard trying to share that information with our project teams and our field leadership, so that when things pop up, when things come up, they're aware of the technology, they're aware of the skill sets and the processes, and can reach out and we can help them solve problems pretty quickly.
I love that you mentioned that teaching aspect because one of the other things that I find really inspiring about Harper's approach is that you are, uh, kind of a cross-discipline organization. So it's not that Eric has his scanning team, he's operating in a silo separate from your field services team, separate from the BIM team, and it really is more that you are all collaborating together, innovating together. I imagine that presents some challenges as well because everything's busy, you all have to get the job done at the end of the day. How did you overcome that hurdle of making sure that everyone bought into the technology and the whole concept of being innovative while having to meet these high pressure deadlines?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we did it out of necessity at the start. We started as a two-person team. Um, gosh, years ago, 7, 8 years ago, and in that, uh, it wasn't something that a bunch of people showed up, a bunch of technology showed up, and then we looked for problems to go solve. It was almost the opposite. And we grew organically in the sense that we had to we had to find, take the problems, find solutions, and do it well, and then make those processes scalable and repeatable, so that we could continue to provide value and convince, the leadership of the company that the investments that we were making had real long-term ROI. And so trying to be really intentional about, you know, identifying the problems first and then providing the right tech, the right solutions to help solve those problems rather than, hey, we've got a new project starting up. Let's just throw all the technology at it and see what sticks. I think being really intentional there has really served us well. It's allowed us to um, grow organically, but also, build a lot of trust and confidence in our leadership team that at this, at this stage and for the last few years, if there's something we want to try or there's something we want to do, they have confidence in our team, whether that's Eric asking or me asking or one of my other teammates and that we're not just trying something because it's the next new shiny thing, but because we've believe that there's a path to real value there. We try to make mistakes quickly, and if we see something, we think there's some value there, but maybe it doesn't work out, we move on. And we've definitely hit those bumps along the road, but I think having the problems in front of us, then finding the right technology to best solve those problems or to get a little bit more efficient in our solutions for those problems has really served us well.
When you mentioned a theme that I hear often with very innovative companies, and that is that the company's leadership is very supportive of letting you try new things and encouraging you to invest in technology and to really push the envelope. And it might not be 100% successful right out of the gate all the time, but to be able to try is
Mhm.
really so important to be able to come out ahead and to be able to provide that value. You have to be able and willing to be innovative. Now, I know that your company, Harper, has been using Leica technology for quite a while. I believe you started in field services with the
Yeah.
Leica Icon robotic total stations even before you moved into laser scanning. I know Zach Pruitt manages your field services group, and I wonder how did that transition go between what was happening in layout and then going into laser scanning, needing their support because I think you also lean on them for control work as well for that scanning.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I think it came naturally. I think we actually, at one point in time, Zach and I were the construction technology or BIM or whatever you wanted to call it. At that point in time, I think we were the BIM team. And so we didn't have field engineers or field services or all these other things, the luxuries. We had to go do it. Which I'm very grateful for because I think that drove both of us to push things to the limits and to learn how to use the different pieces, the different tools, pieces of equipment in tandem with each other. How do we use our Leica total stations with our Leica laser scanners? How do we use our drones with our total stations? And then how do we tie that to the scan data? It gave us an opportunity to understand how all the different data sets that we interact with or have the opportunity to collect on a job site can play together, um, and start incorporating real world coordinate systems and how does that, tie to the buildings and all of the different things that we learned over the years. And we've actually grown outward a little bit, um, which I, again, I'm just really grateful for. So, for us, we started with a few tools. We learned how to use them really well. And then as we grew and had to increase capacity to keep up with demand, we started parsing out into departments a little bit. But I think as I echo attest, like, most of our team, if not all of them, can go out on a job site and run a total station. They can go out on a job site and run a laser scanner. They can go fly a drone. Most of them probably have it in their car, in their truck, and that's intentional because we wanna maintain that skill set where you're not an expert on one thing per se, or you might have a field of expertise, but you're familiar with all the other things, and you're thinking about, while you're developing your workflows and your processes, you're thinking about how that might impact your field services team, the guy set in control. what are the best kind of targets that we can put out there? How do we best manage the control systems when we're scanning uh, you know, a, collecting a difficult data set, or scanning around features. Um, and so being able to have that firsthand experience with all the different tools, and maybe not be experts in it, but be familiar with it enough to where you can take those things into consideration as, in Eric's case, you're developing or moving forward our scanning workflows, I think is really valuable.
I would imagine that keeps you really nimble, being able to quickly address just about any situation that comes up, and keeps you very efficient. Is there a particular project you can think of where the benefit of all this became really clear? And I don't know how far back you would need to go, just thinking about that. But it's, it sounds like this grew organically. That one thing led to another thing. Everyone started to collaborate together. Was there one project where you just saw it all come together and it just instantly demonstrated the value?
I don't I mean, there's been several probably. I know, like, I came to Harper from, a water wastewater, civil engineering firm, so I was very used to working in an environment that was large campus style projects with, real site coordinates, real world elevations, and then I came over to the construction side, and at that time, we were predominantly focused on commercial construction, and I remember working with Zach on, you know, why is everything at 0? Coming from a water, wastewater, civil background, that didn't make sense to me at all. Um, and so we're looking at the different things that we had out there. We had the surveyor come set control, um, and then we would actually, at the time, take the control out of real world coordinates and align it to a Revit model or a design drawing, and kind of scratched my head, and it's like, there's gotta be a better way. And so we ended up kind of combining the Zach's experience of commercial construction and the tools he was using, and my experience from, civil engineering and design, and tangible coordinate systems, and kind of meshing those 2 together. Um, and I recall, I remember the first time I told him this idea, he kinda looked at me like I was crazy, like, "Well, we have all these workflows in place, why would we do that?" But then, we kinda got down the path a couple projects in, and I think the first one I recall really opening people's eyes was we built a fountain in high school, which was on a large, 60, 70 acre site, greenfield, high school, and there was a lot of earthwork, there was a lot of monitoring dirt moving, there's a lot of drone work at the time. I think our drone program was really picking up, um, and that was the first time that I was able to efficiently and effectively display on a large scale the value of everything just dropping into place. Whether you're scanning, whether you're using drones, whether you're using total station, earthworks, all that data, just being able to overlay it and have it all line up, and the benefits that you can gain out of seeing everything together just visually, whether you're talking to your trades on site, um, or things, you have a change order. Somebody comes in a job trailer with, the grader with a change order of, thousands of cubic yards of dirt, and that's a big deal. It's a lot of money, and being able to use the technology in that environment where you're overlapping drone data, tool station data, scan data, and able to sit down with them at the table, and kind of like in the presentation, we allude to, it's not biased information, it's non-biased information. So you put it on the screen, it's the data, and you kind of let the data talk. Um, and that makes those conversations with trade partners, when there are disputes about how much dirt was moved or where it was moved to or how many times it was moved, it makes those conversations really easy because you can sit down, you can pull up the data, and you can say, well, here's what we've got. Maybe you're right. Maybe we moved more than we thought we would, or maybe not so much, or maybe somewhere in the middle. But instead of just going back and forth and getting into the finger pointing, putting the data in front of somebody lets us have those really effective conversations.
Yeah, I love that because it's such a visual process, and I think once people see that, it's almost instantaneous where they see the value and then they want more and they want to know what else you can do. And they're bringing new challenges to you to see, well, can you solve this? Can you solve this? And I think there's another project that I really want to talk about, and maybe we can get Eric to weigh in on this one. But your team was involved in the construction of a helical tower, a Unity Park's 120-foot tall, called the Honor Tower. 22 staircases, 20 landings, a total of something like 352 steps. And your team was responsible for helping to get that installed correctly, accurately, making sure it stayed straight through that whole construction process, and also making sure that everything was aligned correctly. Tell me a little bit about that project and what you were thinking as you went into that when you saw what they were asking you to do.
What were you thinking?
I guess to give some background, the Unity Honor or Unity Park, the one of the phases is the Honor Tower. So it's a 120-foot tower, a visualization tower, so you can observe Greenville in all its beauty. The main pieces there were there was an inner core that had brackets welded to it, and the stairs were to be bolted to those bracket connections. And so the team initially asked us, to come out and help verify that those brackets were in the correct location and per the tolerances that the steel fabricator specified. And so my first initial thought was, how the heck am I going to set a scanner up on the ground and see a 1 foot bracket 120 feet up in the air? And then kind of, going through that process, it's a helical tower. So those stair strings wrap that tower. And then 120 foot up in the air, you also introduce multiple variables, one being wind shift. And so that kind of negated me seeing that bracket from the ground. So it negated all that terrestrial scanning. And so then working with the project team to actually mount the scanner to the inner core so we could work our way up, similar to how they would install those stairs, and start verifying those bracket connections. So when we were ready to install, we had all the data, we knew how to game plan, and we could have a successful install.
Well, and we will link to a separate presentation so that people can get all of the details on that project because it is a stunning project. It was so complex, and you guys did an amazing job. What kind of feedback did you get both from the fabricators that you worked with? Because I know a big part of that project was coordination between a number of different specialty steel fabricators that everything had to fit just right. Everything was being prefabricated off-site. Multiple pieces had to come together and fit perfectly. And you guys did it, and you did it in record time.
Yeah, yeah, we were able to, or I say we, they were able to install the stairs, in 2 weeks and have the stairs bolted to structure, which was remarkable. We were thrilled. I think, the feedback and the outcomes were really cool in this case. Uh, the the specialty stair fabricator is we worked with them a lot through the coordination process, you know, cleaning up our data set and then sharing that with them so they could really work through their fabrication process and have a high level of confidence that they weren't going to get out into the field and get stuck somewhere. There's a lot of talk about compounding error and just how a little bit off on each stair landing would compound as you went up. There's a lot of fears about that. Um, but I think as we worked with them and kind of showed them the data set and how accurate it was and that they could have confidence in it, they really took hold. They did a good job working with us, working with Eric on some coordination meetings, and getting the most out of the data to the extent that they went then after this job and bought themselves I think a Gen 2 BLK, because they want to start implementing scan data into their everyday workflows. I think they found that it was really valuable. Um, but overall, I mean, the feedback from the fabricators was awesome. I think they really appreciated being able to use the scan data to come up with a game plan, to know where they were gonna have to make up for the small incremental error, but then also identify the areas where they knew that there was going to be bigger errors, that they were going to have to, you know, go out and make some field changes and fabricate a couple of pieces. I think that might happen in 2 or 3 locations. But they were able to adjust their crew sizes based on the game plan that they came up with from the scan data. I think that really streamlines um, a good bit of their process, and again help us hit that 2-week goal. If you know anything to add to that about your just general experience working through the coordination process with them, and some of the feedback that you got.
Yeah, I think one thing that was very impactful that we got from the team was that, it was providing one unbiased data set. So we could all sit at the table after the scan, register it. It is what it is. You have your accuracy of the point cloud, and then the point cloud is what you use to bring everything in and compare it to. And so it eliminated all of the finger pointing between trades and engineers and the install teams of you did it this way, you did it that way. This is what it is. This is what I think it is. The data set is what it is. So we were able to really have the data set, get all the shareholders at the table, and start game planning for what changes needed to happen in order to make an efficient install. And then, apart from that, credit to Cyclone for allowing me to produce that, point cloud and share it efficiently as a RCP format so he could bring it into his flavor of AutoCAD and really streamline that process. Was really beneficial in sharing that externally with the Stair fabricators.
Yeah, having
That's
that single source of truth is so important. And I know that for Harper General Contractors, building trust is really what it all comes back to. And when you're able to deliver that high accuracy data in that single source of truth, that really starts to continue to build that foundation of trust that you have there at your company.
Yeah, definitely. Our we aim to build trust into everything that we do, and I think this is a good example of that. And the feedback from the trade partners, and it really allowed us to create some great relationships with some of the folks with these various trade partners, and continue to communicate with them. And now you look at, yes, this project was a success and the technology helped, but we also built a really strong relationship with our especially steel fabricator, to where they're now going through creating their own scanning workflows, and kind of learning some lessons of their own, and we're able to keep in touch with them and compare notes and kind of help build each other up a little bit. And that's something that we really value. I think specialty trades in general are getting far and few between, I would say. We're seeing a lot more of the bigger folks come to town. A little small town like Greenville. There seems to be a lot of big people showing up, and so one of the takeaways for sure is, you know, working with some of these smaller specialty contractors and having an opportunity to make an impact on their processes and how they go about their work, and ultimately make them better. And then get the feedback from them that, hey, I tried this, and have you thought of this? And make us better, and create and build and foster those relationships has been really impactful, really meaningful for Harper.
It's really fun when you can see the impact of your work, not just on project outcomes, but in how other companies within the industry start to change their processes because they see the value, because it's evident to them from working with Harper General Contractors that this is a benefit, and they want to tap into that benefit as well. So it's exciting to see those kinds of changes taking place within the industry. And I know the construction industry historically has been a little bit slow to adopt technology. And it's hard, right? I mean, you're working with, first of all, people. People hate change. We get comfortable with the way that we do things. We get confident in the way that we do things. It's hard to get people to change. And then the industry as a whole just struggles with a lot of different aspects of technology. But I think there's a desire for it, especially now when there's so much pressure to work faster, to be more accurate, to be more productive, to close the labor gap, because that's a big concern that a lot of companies have. What advice would you have for other construction firms that are trying to maximize the value of their technology investments?
Find people like Eric. I mean that intentionally. There's 2 things I think that have really that I would throw out there. The first is, find areas, get out of your comfortable lane, operate with what we call a growth mindset. Get uncomfortable. That's where innovation tends to happen. That's where new solutions are created and where processes are really dissected and refined. I think trying to keep that mindset of, let's not get comfortable and just complacent. Let's put ourselves in a situation that kind of get us outside that comfort lane, so that we can do our best work. And then the other one I would say is, we've really invested a lot of time and energy and resources into, building a really strong internship program. Um, and I think, we've got people coming in from colleges, all over predominantly the East Coast, but with different mindsets and different skill sets and different ways of thinking about construction and technology. And I know for Harper, and then especially for our construction technology team, um, it's been really eye-opening experience. And Eric came through our intern program. We've had, probably 60 or 70% of our team actually came through our intern program. We talked about Zach earlier. I think came through the intern program. And so really intentional about that. And it's just been fascinating having, you know, college kids come in, teaching them your process, and within a few days, they turn around and they say, "Well, why do you do it this way? Wouldn't it be better if we just, tried this?" Or they introduce you to a software you've never heard of, or, something simple, a little process that you've never heard of. Um, so I would encourage, just for other folks, other, TCs or in other industries, bring people in and let them see what you do, and let them help you for a couple of months as part of an internship, because sometimes their perspective, just the outside looking in perspective, can really, give you some valuable insight into some things that you need to work on or some opportunities that you have to get better.
Well, and obviously it works because Eric is still there, right? So that's fantastic. And I bet that for a lot of young people, it's very eye-opening for them to see how high tech construction really can be.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing I would add there is, once you find that person and kind of what we're doing here about, outward reaching and kind of sharing what some of our experiences are, is there's a really good forum out there, the laser scanning forum. And I wouldn't know half the things I know or been able to troubleshoot most of what I know, if not for that forum. So really taking time to help create that scanning community and share what works, what didn't work, and help build the knowledge of scanning just throughout the industry was something I leaned on heavily, and something that I've started to actually go on there and create topics and share some of that knowledge that I've found, and it's just been really helpful as a young person myself to go depend on that and use it as a resource. It's been really helpful.
I think there's the stigma that you don't want to share your secrets, like it's really competitive, and I think at least in the construction technology realm, I've learned so much from friends, peers, people in the industry that work for other companies, and maybe not aren't even doing construction. They might be doing something completely different, but are using similar technology in a different way. Venues like Hexagon Live and conferences where you can go share information and bounce ideas off each other, and um, you know give a presentation on something that you feel like you did pretty well, but be open to ideas and feedback coming back to you, I think is really important. And I would encourage anybody, whether they're in the construction industry or in a different industry, but using similar tools, participate in those things. There's definitely, it takes time and it takes dedication and it's work, but the benefits that we get back from it are just are really awesome and impactful.
Rising tide lifts all ships, right? And that's we all want to improve the overall construction industry. So you guys are so innovative and you've done so many things. Every project seems to build and raise the bar even higher. What is next for Harper in terms of construction technology and innovation? What's next?
Ooh, that's a great question. Um, we have a focus for the next couple of years of getting really good, really dialed in at the tools with the tools that we have. Um, I think, we made some, we've had a lot of growth and we made some big investments and um, we really want to be good stewards of our company and maximize the value that we're getting out of the technologies and the things that we're investing in. We're going down a path with GPS technology and digital dig boards that we're excited about that has really taken off. Our total station field layout program. We've trained more people this year than we had in the past 3 or 4 years combined. Um, so it's really at this stage refining for our team internally and as a construction technology team, refining our skill sets, but then outward facing with our Harper team and our trade partners is educating, training, spending time on the job sites, making sure that we're operating with a builder mindset, and using their feedback to kind of guide where we're headed and that we're providing them value. Um, I would say that's the direction from the field services and kind of the VDC line. And then obviously, it wouldn't be a podcast if we didn't mention AI and talk about some of the tools that were coming down the line. And like I said, we're aware, we're dipping our toe in the water, but we like to fire bullets before cannonballs. We wanna test some things and figure out where the value is, prove it out, as opposed to just jumping in, without really having that value proven out. So we're being a little bit careful there, but I think looking at things like process automation is a big deal, as we kind of build out the construction technology arm. There's a process group that's happening where we're just finding ways to reduce clicks, to reduce manual data entry, all of those types of fun adventures that may not be flashy, but really pay off in man hours and just making people's lives and work lives a little bit more efficient, a little bit better.
So you have the right people in the right places within your organization. You have the right tools in your toolkit. You continue to innovate with every single project. Those really sound like the keys to me to maximizing your technology investments. What are you most excited about as you look to the future, each of you?
What do you think?
I'm excited about getting my hands on 3DR a little bit more. That was a tool we invested in. That's like picking up Revit or any one of those softwares the first time. There's so much that it's capable of, and really pushing the limits of point clouds and the data we can pull from them and apply it to all of our jobs. That's one thing I'm most looking forward to.
Yeah, I think
Or the robot dog. That would save me some time.
yeah. Yeah, things are moving quickly. Technology, the pace of technology is exponential, and it's really it's going fast. And I think to the point where you have to decide: am I spending my time trying to wrap my head around all of this, or am I picking and choosing and trying and um, you know failing fast, but then finding some things that really drive value? And I think that's kind of where my mindset is at. I think the thing I'm most excited for um, is automation, particularly when it comes to, buildings are getting more complex, designs are getting more complex, budgets are shrinking, timelines are shrinking. Um, And one of the big challenges that the construction industry faces is the dealing with all of those things and the impact that they have on design quality. So from an excitement standpoint, that's got to be it for me is, you know, using some forms of AI and some automation to really push forward model development, model accuracy, um, which then should turn into faster, better builds and being better outcomes for our clients ultimately.
Well, I can't wait to see where Harper takes everything. It is so exciting. I would be remiss if I don't ask this one last question, and I'm not sure yet where we'll put it in this interview, but I do just want to get your insight, and that is why Leica. Harper has partnered with Leica Geosystems for both the layout side of the technology with the Icon robots and the scanning side of technology. What is the value that partnership brings to your company? Why did you choose Leica?
It's a great question. I think there's two answers. One probably for the total station and geosystem side, and then maybe a different one for the scanning side. But with the total stations and the GPS equipment, and Zach, I feel confident would say this too, is we need equipment that we can depend on. And any piece of technology, any piece of equipment is going to have quirks, and there's going to be things that we've got to dig into and figure out. And I think one of the uh, best parts about the Leica equipment that we found over the years is there's while we have run into some issues, there's never one that we can't figure out why. Um, and I think that's been really valuable for us. And quite often, uh, Zach is a wizard with the stuff. He can figure out the why really quickly. We've been doing it for quite some time now. But having a piece of equipment that is consistent, that is reliable, and that in when conditions change and things happen, that you can go figure out why something's not looking right or why the data is not coming back right, and you can make quick adjustments and then move on. That you're not stuck there. Um, so I think on the geosystem side, the field layout side, that would be the number one reason. I think Zach would agree with that. On the laser scanning side, it's really, um, you know, the BLK was a product of, we were already getting the tow stations from Leica. It was a comfortable dipping our toe in the water, but we looked hard before we bought the RTC. And what really sold us on the RTC again, quality and probably ease of use, I would say was the biggest one. Um, it allow us to capture really good, really high accuracy data really quickly, relatively easily, um, and gave us a lot of flexibility and, just was a good fit for the things that we were trying to do. So I can't say enough good things about the RTC. We've used it. We've put it through the paces now.
Yeah.
Scanning a couple times a week, it feels like. And man, it's just reliable, rock solid. The data's great. We get into some challenging job sites like the one in the presentation, um, and the Leica equipment just delivers. That's what we're looking for.
Well, we love seeing companies like Harper General Contractors applying the technology and taking it to the next level because, Leica provides the technology, but it's really the customers, the contractors. You guys are the innovators. You're the ones who are in the field using that technology to solve real world problems. And that is inspiring. That is exciting. And we really look forward to seeing where you guys take it next. So Jordan Chandler and Eric Dewyea from Harper General Contractors, thank you so much for your time today. This has been a fabulous interview, and I hope to have you on the program again at some point in the future.
Yeah, please do. We look forward to it. Thank you for the opportunity, Kristen.
Thank you.